Okay, I want to spend some time with you working on outlining how to move from an observation page to actually having a viable outline of the text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what outlining is, what are indicators of transitions, and then we are going to go line by line over the text of 2 Samuel 7, 4 through 16. I am going to outline this passage for you. You have probably already made an outline, but I want you to compare your outline to mine. And one of the things that's key here is that your outline needs to be demonstrated by the text. You need to have, in other words, evidence from the text as to why there's a transition where you put one. And so I'm going to show you how to do an outline where you outline a passage and you can explain why you have a Roman numeral 1 with these verses and why you have a Roman numeral 2 with these verses. You'll be able to demonstrate that from your observation sheet. Some people think, well, I assume, I've kind of heard, well, I didn't hear anything actually. Doing your first Bible study, I realized that that many of you, I think, didn't understand how the observation page relates to the actual Bible study. Because on a number of occasions, the Bible study didn't even refer to the outline or the content around it, which is fine. You didn't know how to do it. And, you know, I have to apologize, actually, because this lecture should have been at the beginning, before we began Bible studies. But it just didn't occur to me to think about it, to do a lecture on it. So I apologize because you're probably still in this kind of confused state of not knowing exactly what you're doing and feeling like, you know, what's the point of this? Perhaps. I hope there aren't many who think that, but I'm sure there are. So I apologize, but we only have had one Bible study. So the rest of the Bible studies are out in front of us. And so this is, in a sense, a good place, even still. It's still at the beginning. We're not in the middle. We don't have, we don't have the second Bible study done yet. So I want to take you back to my high school days. This is 1989. I was a senior in high school. And I was in the senior English class. This was a class that was notorious for being difficult because you had to do this big research paper. And, even, you heard things about this class, in your sophomore and junior years. It's how the reputation it had. So I'm in this class, and we pick a topic, we start researching it, and then the first thing we have to do after we get some research done is we have to put together an outline before we can start writing the paper. So my teacher wanted me to think through the beginning, the middle, the end of my paper. So, what was the introduction? And then the body, Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3, and then the conclusion. And, of course, there were then subpoints within that gave further content. And so you could look at that outline and you could say, okay, this is what this paper is about. Here is how the student is going to develop it. And here is, where the conclusion will go. And so you had to turn that in before you could actually start writing the paper. Outlining in a Bible study is the reverse. We have a text. We have the writing. We have the paper, so to speak. What we need to do, what our job is to do, is to pull back the layer to find the skeleton, because the outline is a skeleton of the paper. An outline is the skeleton of a text, and so that outline is crucial for a text to be viable. So what our job is in doing Bible study is to get to the skeleton, to get to the kind of the basic part of the text. We want to be able to understand how this text was created. What's the structure of it? Because once we know the structure of it, we can kind of put the pieces together. We can understand how one thing relates to another and to another, and then we can stand back and say, well, here's then what it means. So an outline then, to sum up, is trying to put an outline together is finding the structure of the passage and then putting that structure into writing using Roman numerals. And that structure can only be discovered by working on the observation page. And so what I want to do is I want to walk through 2 Samuel 7, 4 through 16, and I want to show you the outline of the text. I'm giving you the correct outline. So you can set aside your outline if it doesn't look like mine, and now you have the outline. You have the perfect outline after this. And so I'm doing that because I want to give you a gift, because I want you to see how it's done, so you can replicate it going forward. Now, what are indicators of transitions between mini units, small units? What do you look for? Well, probably one of the most important signals or indicators is a conjunction. Conjunctions are super, super important in Bible study. Conjunctions relate sentences and paragraphs. They begin paragraphs sometimes, and they end paragraphs, and they connect sentences within paragraphs. The conjunction is crucial in looking for the structure of the text, and so we're going to be looking for key conjunctions. Now, you probably aren't very used to thinking about conjunctions, and the number of conjunctions and the kind of conjunctions probably isn't something you have in your mind. And what I would recommend you do is that you go to Google and you type up conjunctions and go to a page and look at the conjunctions and what they do or what their function is. And even it might be wise to make a printout. I know there'll be like you type conjunction and you go to images and there'll be like these, charts and stuff. I think that would be really important to have close by to do your Bible study, because conjunctions are just crucial. What else? What are other indicators? Other indicators are changes of subject. So if the text is talking about Saul, and in the next chapter, the text is now talking about David, you clearly have a transition there. That's very obvious. Sometimes it's a bit more subtle, but a change of subject is an important indication. Change of scene or setting, a change of setting. So classic example would be in John, the book, the Gospel of John. You have these two stories that are side by side. One is in the night, and the other is in the middle of the day. And so these two periods of time in these two places as well are indicators. What other indicators are there? Dialogue. Sometimes dialogue is a place where you see that's an indicator of transition. Paying attention to how the dialogue relates to what follows. So when a dialogue is over, you probably have a change of a transition. So there are probably a few others, but that's a good start for us. So conjunctions, changes of person, changes of setting, and changes of dialogue. Okay, I'm gonna have a sip of my coffee. So let's work on this. I'm going to mark up my observation page, and when I do an observation page, and I do an observation page, I just happen to do it in Greek and Hebrew, but I still do an observation page, because everything that I need to know to understand this text literarily is in this unit, in this section. This is what I have. This is why I need to do this, because I can't say anything else until I have mastered this text. I understand it. So I'm going to be making observations, but my observations are essentially purely about transitions and outlining. So there will be other kinds of observations you would have to make or want to make, but we're going to focus on looking for the structure. So let's jump in. The first word of this paragraph is the word but. But is a conjunction. Do you know what but does? What is but's function? Don't think too hard about that, okay? What's the function of but? But here's what it does. it takes this statement, that night the word of the Lord came to Nathan saying, and it puts it contrary to what was said up here, probably in verse 3. So verse 3 states something, and then the writer says, but that night the word of the Lord came to saying. So it basically denies verse 3 by this but. It is a negative. It negates. This but negates whatever was said in 3. So since the but is connected to something above and not in this passage, it isn't relevant to us because it relates to something above, and we're concerned about the stuff below it. Okay, but that is a conjunction. Okay, that night the word of the Lord came to Nathan, saying, "Go and tell my servant David, this is what the Lord says: Are you the one to build me a house to dwell in? Now then, tell my servant David." Now, let's just stop right there and come back. We have just run into another conjunction. The conjunction is then. Then is a conjunction. Then you have to ask, what does then do? What is its function? Then has like two ideas. One is time. Like we went to a friend's house, and then after that we went to get something to eat. That focuses that nuance is time related. But you can also have then be more interested in a sequence. So in that case, it's not so much interested in time, but in a sequence. This happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and this happened. It's about a sequence of things, sequence of events, but not so much interested in the time factor. So the then relates to back to verse 8, and it basically then says that in verse 8, the then signals that the tell my servant David, in the quotation, follows verse 8, and not just because it's verse 8 that follows verse 7, but because the text itself indicates that. Just a word here. These verse numbers, they aren't original to the composition of the manuscripts, of the composition of the text. The person that composed 1 Samuel or 2 Samuel did not put verses and chapters in it. Those didn't come until about 2 millennia after this text was written. In the medieval period, monks added verses and chapters and verses to make the Bible easier to work with, because before that it just had words and lines, and there weren't divisions between sentences and chapters. It just was kind of one long text. So we're thankful for the monks, but the monks also kind of screwed us up a bit, because sometimes the verse number comes in the middle of a sentence or of a couple of sentences. It sort of breaks up an idea into like two parts. It was as if the verse number was wedged into a text, and we're going to see that actually here in a moment in verse 9. But just something to be aware of, that these verse numbers do not sometimes should be disregarded. So we have house to dwell in. Now then, tell my servant David. So there is a sequence. Also, you have this word now, and so you have another sort of temporal word. Now, tell my servant David. And so this is kind of puts this, since you have these two sort of temporal ideas, it puts significant emphasis on the transition words. Now then, it becomes a sort of a stronger emotional emphasis, you might say. So, question is, since we have a conjunction, does the conjunction sort of show a transition from verse 7 to verse 8? What do you think? Let's read that again. This is what the Lord says. Are you the one to build a house to dwell? Are you the one to build me a house to dwell in? Sorry. And then you have, now then, tell my servant David. It seems to me that you have a transition here from the couple of verses above it, and I would, it seems to me, and I think I think you might hopefully feel that as well, that the now then begins another thought. It's an additional thought, and in that case, then we have our first point. Our first outline point is 7, 4 through 7. Okay, so see how we were looking for this conjunction, and we thought about the conjunction being a transition. With the now, it gives it a more kind of emphasizes the statement more. And so those things together, make that a strong indicator of transition. All right, let's continue here. By the way, we're going to go through this whole thing, so you might want to pause it and go to the bathroom. Tell my servant David, this is what the Lord Almighty says. I took you from the pasture, from tending the flock, and appointed you ruler over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have cut off all your enemies from before you. Now I will make your name great. Here's another now. So we have like two nows. We have repeated word, and we might need to think about the relationship between the two nows. But it seems likely that the now here is going to function the same way as the now does here. And if that's the case, then there's a good possibility that that indicates another change of another transition. Now, I need to think about this a bit more. Like, it appears to suggest a transition as that now functioned. But are there any other indicators that would suggest that we should see that as a transition? Well, let's go back through this. This is what the Lord Almighty... So you have to go back through this all the time. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I took, past tense, you from the pasture, from tending the flock, and appointed you, past tense, ruler over my people. I have been, past tense, with you wherever you have gone, and I have cut, all past tense, your enemies from before you. Now I will make your name great, like the names of the greatest men, and I will provide a place for my people, and will plant them so that they can have a home of their own and no longer be disturbed. Do you see that? These are all past. And when you get here to verse 10, you have future. There's a shift there. It's subtle. I know. It's AP observation, you might say. But we have great evidence to determine that we have another transition at verse. Wait a minute. Oh my gosh. There's not another verse here. It's not 9 and then 10. It's 9 and 9. How could you have a divide in the middle of a verse? Isn't a verse like kind of the definition of a statement? How can this be? Well, here again, this is a problem. It creates a problem because most of us are just going to be reading verse 9 and kind of going over that transition point and never noticing it because it's a part of verse 9, and verse 9 should be whole. It shouldn't be split up. It's verse 9. But in this case, there is a transition in the middle of verse 9. So you have then a second outline point that goes from 7, 8 to 9A, let's say. So this is going to be A, and this is going to be B. So this is 9A, this is 9B. Because we have two separate parts of that one verse. Does that make sense? So 7, 8 through 9a, because that's the middle of the verse. So just think about that for a minute. So I noticed when we came here that there was a now, and I had the sort of the intuition that the now here was going to be the same as have the same function as the now there, which was a beginning of a new mini section. But it was confirmed when I went and looked back at the verses and paid attention to the verbs. Looking at verbs is important. This is past, this is future. So appoint, past, all these are past until after the now. And those are all future. I don't know. What do you think? Just for fun, I want to show you. Here's another conjunction, so that, and I hope you would remember that so that expresses intention. So that, and I will provide a place for my people Israel, and will plant them in order that they can have a home of their own and no longer be disturbed. So the intention of the I wills is that the people can have their own land and no longer be disturbed. So God is going to through David and his family, he's going to give peace to his people. Kingship then becomes the means of salvation, of flourishing. Anyway, I couldn't resist that. So, verse 9b, we have these I wills. And then we come to, the Lord declares to you that the Lord himself will establish a house for you. Just a note. I extracted pieces and put them together from 4 through 16. So that's why there are ellipses there. But we're going to assume that this statement, the Lord declares to you that the Lord himself will establish you, is verse 11. Okay? Just for our fun here. So there is a indentation, an indent here at verse 11, and often modern Bibles will identify shifts, transitions with indentions. And so that's what you see here is an indention, which means we have then another section. So our third section goes from 9b through 10, because our new section begins at 11. The Lord declares to you that the Lord himself will establish a house for you. When your days are over and you rest with your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you. Now be looking for indicators of transition. Your own flesh and blood. And I will establish his kingdom. He is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. Your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever. Did anything stick out to you that signaled a transition? Why don't you look at that for a second? If I can position it right. Is there anything in that short paragraph that would suggest there is a transition somewhere there? Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Don't assume that I think that there is, and so therefore you're going to have to find it like a rabbit hunt or an egg hunt. I mean, it's either there or not. So do you see anything? Well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't see anything. This section is a unit. There is no divide anywhere in it. There's nothing that indicates a transition. So we have 4 then units, with this being 7:11 through 16. So there were no transitions here. So the outline is Roman numeral 1, 7, 4 through 9. Sorry, 4 through 7. 4 through 7. Roman numeral 2, 7, 8 through 9b. Roman numeral 3 is 7, no, B9, sorry. Let me do that again. It would be 8, 9a, and then 9a through 10. And then our last point, 4, is 7, 11 verses through 16. So there you are. That's your outline for this passage. And we discovered it by walking through the observation page, looking for indicators, conjunctions, changes of persons, changes of scene or setting. And I had a fourth one. What's the fourth one? Conjunctions, changes of characters, changes of scene. Dialogue. How do you spell dialogue? No, I had it right. The pressure's on. I have to spell correctly. Sorry. So these are things you're going to look for. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful. Well, I know it's going to be helpful. So, but I need you to kind of to work hard on it. This is not necessarily easy stuff. It's not hard, but takes a bit of time. That's for sure. But this is what we want to be able to do. In an introduction to the Bible, this is a drilled down introduction to studying the Bible. And we're doing this kind of high level, with our stick figures and episode descriptions. But this is our, drill down. And so it kind of goes hand in hand. Okay, well, if you have any questions about what you've seen here, reach out to me. Okay? And I'll try to help you. But here is your outline for the passage, and you're welcome.